What's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name's Matt.
My name is Dyl, and we're finally back doing another predictions episode. It feels like it's been a little bit, but now a lot has happened in the race. We've both seen Sing Sing. A lot of new movies have broken on into the scene. But, Matt, what movie should we talk about first?
Well, let's talk about the movie that we've been delaying this new predictions. We wanted to do these predictions like 2 weeks ago, and then both of us got delayed on seeing Sing Sing. And so now we've seen Sing Sing. This has been your win pick all year long, but now after seeing it, I'm seeing on your chart there, you've moved it down to number 2. Why is that?
So the first thing I want to say is I really did love this movie. It was better than I thought it would be. But the biggest thing I have to take away from watching Sing Sing with like an Oscar eye is what everyone's been saying all year. It's too small of a film to win. To make a real impact during awards season, I think it would need a massive push, bigger than something like Coda got a few years ago. And what Coda did to make it have so much momentum and to make it do so well is it had the support of the actors. Looking at Sing Sing, you would think this would be a SAG bait movie, but when you look a little bit more into it, there's only like 2 cast members who are actually a part of the SAG organization. Will SAG go out of their way to support a movie without members inside of the movie? Actors are typically considered some of the more clickier types of people. That's why you see a lot of repeat winners at SAG, the same people get in every year. I don't know, I feel like Sing Sing could be the massive snub come SAG day. And just looking at its potential, yes, I could see stuff from maybe director, maybe editing, score, song, but there's no chance it's gonna win any of those categories. The categories it does have a chance to win, I don't feel as strong about as I did before watching the movie. Colman Domingo in lead actor. He's been both of our predictions from the get-go and a lot of other people's as well. He's coming off of Rust and all the buzz there of how he was snubbed for winning there. This is his time to shine this year, and he's great. He's very not showy. Is that enough to win? I'm not exactly sure, because year after year, this Best Actor category shows to us you need to either have a huge push behind you for a narrative, B, being the Best Picture winning film, or C, be the most showy performance. Oftentimes you have at least 2, if not all 3 of those. Colman Domingo to me maybe has 1, being the potential Best Picture winning film, but I don't think he's going to have the most showy performance of the bunch. I don't think he's going to have the best narrative of the bunch. And then that leaves Clarence Macklin for supporting actor, who I think is the film's best chance to win, along with adapted screenplay. But both of those feel like they could kind of go off the wayside to films that are more buzzy, more popular later on down the year, because as Matt just mentioned, we have been trying to see Sing Sing for months. It took A24 forever to get this film outside of just New York and LA.
I want to circle back to one thing you said, which was about SAG Ensemble and SAG being a clique that might not want to support a cast that doesn't have SAG members or only has a few SAG members in it. And what I'd point to here is Parasite. They were the darlings of the season. They were all South Korean. None of them needed to be Screen Actors Guild of America members. I don't think that that is going to be an issue. In fact, I think SAG is likely the place this is going to get the most support, because this is a film about the beauty of acting, the way that acting can be a way to process grief and move forward with our lives. I think that this is likely to do very well at SAG, if anywhere. One thing I will say, I like what you said there, that this movie is just too small. And I agree. I think that this movie is a bit closer to past lives than people want to admit. There's a lack of traditional conflict. There's a lack of a real arc. That, to me, doesn't feel like a winner. It just feels too small, too slight. The film's best chances, like you said, are in the acting categories. Colman Domingo, definitely too small a performance. I don't see him winning over top of people like Ralph Fiennes, who has an incredible narrative behind him, or even Timothée Chalamet, who is playing a more traditionally Beatty role. And then, of course, there's Clarence Macklin, who is spectacular. He is definitely the film's best chance at a win. But the thing is, he's going up against king of narrative, Samuel L. Jackson. So we're really going to have to see how that race pans out. But I don't think that this film can win just on acting wins. And I don't see it getting screenplay. Honestly, I think that there's a big chance, a very strong chance, that this film only gets 4 nominations: picture, screenplay, actor, supporting actor. So you have changed winners. And I'm really shocked looking at your list of what you changed your winner to, because you picked Joker Folie à Deux as your new winner. I can't talk down on you. This is my number 3, but winning? I'm gonna need a defense of this because I don't see really any world where this wins.
Seriously, if we genuinely believe this film is going to be a complete 180 from the first, switching things in a lot of different ways to be more appealing across the board, winning multiple major categories, why can it not shock the world and take Best Picture? Because, like, think about it. You could win director, you could win a lead acting performance, then you have cinematography, you have editing, you have song, you potentially have some more text coming along the way. This seems like a very strong across-the-board player. It sounds like Dune Part 1, just with director and an acting prize. And I think if Dune Part 1 did win one of those things, it would have competed for the Best Picture prize. And yes, it may sound a little bit crazy, but that's what these early predictions are for before you see lots of the movies. The thing I can say right now is I'm confident the Best Picture winner has not been seen by the general public. It's something from these fall film festivals or a movie skipping the fest altogether. And I just want to put my chips in Joker Folie à Deux. It's also an election year, and some of the promotional buzz around Joker 2, the trailers are kind of hinting at there's going to be some sort of very strong, potent political messaging. I could see that maybe tying into this film. We'll learn very soonly at the Venice Film Festival, but at least for this next month, I'm gonna ride with Joker Folie à Deux.
I don't think that saying that it's winning all these tech prizes means that we have to take it seriously for Best Picture. It feels closer to something like Gravity or Dune, like you mentioned. There's always those movies that clean up those tech prizes and don't need to be number 1 for Best Picture, and that's what Joker feels like to me. Also, I don't know if I would personally make the link between Joker and the election. There's other films out there that are much stronger in terms of that link between the real world and the film itself. I don't see that connection for Joker. And I want to know, like, what is it about Anora that's not doing it for you? This is still my number 1. What's not doing it for you?
I mean, to be completely honest, the trailer did not look very good. And then going into just the subject of the film, I know we just had Everything Everywhere, but I still think there's going to be a selection of the Academy that's not going to respond very well to a story about a worker in the adult entertainment industry, and I think that could work very well for its screenplay chances, but I don't know about its Best Picture chances. Now, if it wins Tiff, I will probably move Anora up to number 2, maybe even potentially number 1. I just need to see another film festival go out of its way for Anora in the top prize.
So there's a contingent of voters in the Academy that won't go for a movie about a sex worker, but you don't see that with a comic book movie.
I see that angle there that you're going for, but I think the first Joker showcased that, hey, they're not looking at these type of movies in the sense of they're a comic book movie. The first Joker led that Academy Awards with the most nominations. In fact, that Academy Awards was maybe the best of recent memory, with Parasite winning so many big prizes, with so many films that people love from top to bottom. Very, very, very stacked year. They gave the most nominations to a comic book film, being Joker, and I see this film being taken more serious. As we saw, it's going back to Venice. It has a chance to win a major prize. Maybe it doesn't repeat the Golden Lion, but I could see it maybe taking a acting prize, a screenplay prize, maybe even a directing prize over there. And then it will continue to its theatrical release. It's just something, like I said, I want to take a big shot. I don't want to fall in line because I don't really feel confident in all these other big contenders out there, whether it is something like Anora, if it's something like Conclave, something like the next movie that we'll talk about. They just don't feel like Best Picture winners to me, but they do feel like strong nominations.
So yes, it did have the most nominations. I'll give you that, but it didn't win, and it didn't win because it's divisive, and divisive films don't do very well on a preferential ballot. So why would a sequel to an already divisive film win? Granted, I do agree that the film is probably going to be more consensusly liked than the first one, but I just don't see the logic for going for a sequel as the winner. It didn't work with Avatar. I don't understand why we're here again.
I guess my case for Joker Folie à Deux is that it's fresh, it has a lot to say, and it has the potential to win acting prizes and a directing prize, which in retrospect, I guess The Way of Water never had a chance to win director, even if I potentially saw an angle for it, but it 100% did not have a chance to win an acting prize. This film can win one acting prize. I mean, there's all this talk of Joaquin Phoenix being nominated for the same role again. If we can get over the hump to have him be nominated for the same role, which is a comic book role again, why can't we take that extra step to entertain the thought of a sequel winning? Because if you look to some of those movies where their actors do get nominated for the same role again, they end up being number 1 or number 2 in the Best Picture race.
I'd say we'd have to go further and entertain Joaquin Phoenix winning for the same role again if we want to consider this as a winner for Best Picture.
I mean, the head of Venice wants us to believe that he potentially could. So like I said, we'll find out very, very, very shortly.
Let's talk about another movie that we disagree on. Although this one we disagree much, much more, because you have this next movie at your number 17 slot, while I have it all the way up at number 4. Which one of us is morbing? Which one of us is right? This is Jason Reitman's Saturday Night. It was just announced to be in the Oscar race to match up with SNL Season 50. I got a few reasons for having it so high. I promise I'm not just doing this because I'm reactionary to the news that it's in the race. I heard phenomenal test screening buzz from very, very good sources. I had people messaging me months ago saying, watch out, if SNL 1975 plays Tiff, expect it to be a People's Choice contender. This one is huge. And the premise is really exciting. It's taking place almost live during the show so that we see the chaos of the opening night of Saturday Night Live. It's a biopic that's doing the formula different. It's not settling into a typical Being the Ricardos type thing. It's a recognizable subject matter, but not done in an overdone way. And the film is doing TIFF, unless the website is lying. It has not been announced for TIFF yet, but there is a ghost page for it, meaning that you can find that there is an existing page, but it just has not been updated to be public yet. And since Jason Reitman is a hometown boy, TIFF loves him. His family donated the building, and the film is TIFF People's Choice Award bait. It feels like far and away the front runner, and if it does win at TIFF, that immediately puts it top 5 for Best Picture. Every single TIFF People's Choice Award winner since Silver Linings Playbook in 2012 has won an above-the-line Oscar, except for The Fabelmans, and The Fabelmans was still top 5 that year. The movies that win at TIFF win big at the Academy Awards, even when people don't want to admit it, like with American Fiction last year. People stuck their heads in the sand and said, this is nothing, it's a fluke, TIFF doesn't mean anything. TIFF means something. TIFF means something, and if Saturday Night wins there, it is going to the Oscars. But here's the problem I have. What would the film win if it does win at TIFF? Maybe it takes away screenplay from My Beloved Honora. I don't know about that. Maybe one of the actors. I don't think Gabriel Labelle could do it. I don't think Nicholas Braun or J.K. Simmons could do it. Maybe Rachel Sennett could pull something out in a dead supporting actress field. I overall think that doubting this movie is a bit silly right now because there's so much riding for it. Everything around this movie is pointing towards this being Jason Reitman's best work since Up in the Air. The other thing is that just the existence of Saturday Night Live as a show is going to work as campaigning for the film. People will always be reminded that movie exists. Oh, I liked that movie. It was fun. If you don't think SNL is going to be campaigning for this movie, man, they are going to be pulling out all the stops to get this movie awards. This could be our yearly low 70s on Metacritic, but gets all the awards nominations anyways because audiences like it. Movie. It feels like that to me.
I mean, you do a great job of selling the film overall. This makes me a little bit more interested and intrigued after hearing your thoughts, but I have a few rebuttals I just want to throw back to this. Talk about inside sources. Sources said the same thing about The Apprentice. Look how that turned out. And then taking other sources who aren't yours.
My source on The Apprentice was on the set. This is someone who's seen the movie. And I will say, I loved The Apprentice. I think that
You're
if
one of
The
few.
Apprentice... I mean, it's in the green on Metacritic. It's not negative. I don't think that this film would be having the troubles that it's having if there weren't legal issues around it. I feel like if there weren't those legal issues and it got distribution, I mean, before the legal issues came in, Searchlight was circling the film. Netflix was circling the film. If one of those people had bought it, if there were no legal troubles, we would be talking about The Apprentice very, very differently right now. But that's not the world we're in.
And then just taking other recent critic screenings, you could list a slew of them, and they've been saying that film's a lot more enjoyable than what the Academy turns out being, because what all those films have in common, they're more populist type films or they're more film Twitter type films, which leads me to my second point. This film screams youth, younger appeal, not in the way of Everything Ever All at Once, but something more akin to like Across the Spider-Verse from last year.
Okay, fair enough. I will actually disagree with that because SNL is in its 50th season. I don't think that the casting of the film with younger actors makes this innately just a film Twitter movie. In fact, I could see a world where film Twitter thinks this movie is kind of annoying. Instead, I think this is going to really connect with those older voters, the ones who have been watching SNL since 1975, who are going to see all of these people that they're familiar with represented by today's youth. I think that's going to be a big selling point of this. It is an all-star biopic, right? It's so many people that people love and are familiar with. You got Dan Aykroyd as a character in here. You get Jim Henson as a character in here. This doesn't feel like a youth-focused movie to me. This feels like an everyone-focused movie.
You go back to talking about biopics are done differently, but if you look at the Academy, they don't really love these different type of biopics that focus on one moment in time. You go to a recent example of like Steve Jobs, where we'll give it screenplay, we'll give it actor, but it's not winning anything.
It didn't get screenplay.
Didn't even get screenplay.
It didn't get a screenplay nomination. It's one of the few movies to win the Golden Globe for screenplay and not be nominated at the Oscars.
But then you go to more conventional biopics like Elvis, like Bohemian Rhapsody. Those hit across the board while also being giant populist type films. But to go back into something else that you said about TIFF People's Choice, which yes, this very well could win the People's Choice if it is announced for TIFF. Depends on how many screenings it has. And on top of that, yes, it could place and not win, and every year we have at least one of the top three miss out on Best Picture, and Saturday Night screams that type of movie for this year. And then the other thing is going to Jason Reitman himself. If he places, if he wins, is that because his family's involved with TIFF, the goodwill? Is that about the movie itself? That's all questions we'll have to ask later on down the year. But the last thing to talk about with Jason Reitman is his work, as of late, has been very questionable. And in fact, the guy who's co-writing this movie has also co-written or directed Jason Reitman's last two films, which have both been two of his, you could say, more questionable films of his recent discography, being both of the Ghostbusters movies. We see this all the time where people go from populist films that are kind of mixed, they go to a more indie thing, they do it a lot better. Be interested to see if Saturday Night kind of falls into that line. And I mean, I do have this down at number 17, but that's not because I don't think this is a contender at all. I currently think this is a solo screenplay type movie. It just feels right for something like that, especially in a desolate original screenplay category.
To go back to the points that you made there, the first point that you made was that unconventional biopics often don't get nominations versus conventional biopics. You are right about that, and that is one strike against the film, which is that if it feels too different, if it feels too much like a Steve Jobs type, that's a trickier spot for the film to be in, although I think being a comedy might help it quite a bit. Also, in terms of one People's Choice Award winner missing, usually 2 out of 3 go on to Best Picture nominations. I don't think it would be Saturday Night that misses, and I think it's easy to say, oh, well, the Canadian bias, but often those Canadian bias movies do actually end up getting in. I mean, Women Talking in 2022, you could say that that largely placed because of Canadian bias around Sarah Polley. Room in 2015 won the People's Choice Award based on Canadian bias. But the fact of the matter is, getting that placement, the buzz just grows, even if it started as Canadian bias. And yes, Jason Reitman has been on a questionable streak lately. Everything to me feels like this is the best film he's made since 2009. And I could be wrong about that. I'm sticking to it for now. Anyways, let's move over to another film that surprisingly entered the race recently. The Bob Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown. Now, Dyl, here's another one I'm surprised you don't have higher, because you currently have this right on the edge at your number 10 slot, below Blitz. Why are you feeling shaky on this one when it looks like it has all the right ingredients, like we just talked about? Those conventional biopics often get these nominations. What makes this different for you from Elvis or Bohemian Rhapsody?
I mean, the lame answer is just that it's the new movie on the block we've known about for a week. Do I want to be overreactionary and throw it up to like number 5, 4, 3, 2? No. So it's going to start off at number 10, but move up over the course of time. But to give a fun answer, it's skipping festivals entirely and releasing last minute. That has not been a very winning strategy, and the movies that have overcome that are Avatar: The Way of Water, a film that was a guaranteed nomination but had zero chance of winning Best Picture, and then Nightmare Alley, a Best Picture winners Best Director winners, follow-up movie coming from Searchlight, which this one's coming from Searchlight as well, but was the number 10 nomination. It failed to get anything above the line and was just tech nominations. A Complete Unknown looks stronger than Nightmare Alley on paper. It has Timothée Chalamet playing Bob Dylan. That seems like a very strong Best Actor contender. As time goes on and on, like, I can definitely see this moving up my ranks, especially once some eyes laid to this movie, because it's no way they're skipping critics all the way until December 25th, because even Babylon had people watch it in early November for those critic circles and stuff like that. And then maybe it's not just Timothée Chalamet in the best or whatever race. Maybe Searchlight, they work their magic as they always do. They get a director in the conversation and it's James Mangold. Then definitely this will shoot up my list into the top 5. But I mean, it's a brand new movie on the block. It's got to start somewhere. It can't just be placed at the very tippy top right away.
I mean, that's definitely not what I do. I have this very high up as well as Saturday Night, both of which are the New Kids on the Block. And I'm like, ooh, get in there, get up to the top. It does feel like having it at number 10 is saying this could be on shaky ground. Do you see any world where Searchlight doesn't have a nominee this year?
It really comes down to Tiff with Night Bitch. Is that more what I think it's been all season, or is that more what to you had thought it was going to be this season? If it's like, it's just an acting play, then yeah, maybe they could completely miss out nominees because, like I said before, those very, very late breakers, Christmas week releases, don't have the best track record, but sometimes they can sneak their way into number 10. I just think them putting this in 2024 proves to me that they have zero confidence in A Real Pain, as what many of us have thought all season. I have taken Culkin out of my supporting actor lineup. I never wanted him in there anyway.
It's not doing any festivals. Like, what the hell are they doing with A Real Pain? They're just burying it.
It's what Searchlight does every year. We talk about it with Neon only having one horse. Searchlight does the same thing. Unless they're both winning Best Picture contenders, they only care about one movie. And I think them putting A Complete Unknown into 2024 showcases this is our dog. We don't care about the rest.
I will say something that worries me about this one is films like Elvis, films like Bohemian Rhapsody, those movies that are those conventional biopics, they get in on the hype around that artist and on being big box office sensations. I don't know if Bob Dylan is that beloved by the general public. I think music nerds love Bob Dylan. I love Bob Dylan. But I feel like a lot of the people that love Bob Dylan the way I do, it's not the same audience that loves Queen. It's not the same audience that loves Elvis. It's not the same audience that's going to love Michael Jackson next year. That, to me, is a little bit of a trouble sign. I don't see this being a box office sensation.
I can see it go two ways for the box office. I don't think it's going to be a huge opening like Bohemian Rhapsody, like Elvis, and like what Michael's going to do next year. But I could see this movie doing pretty well over the course of time, having solid legs. I don't think it's going to hit like the 500 million worldwide as some of those other movies did. But I could see it doing like 120, 150 domestic and like 300-400 worldwide. I think that's a solid number for it to kind of lead up to, if it is a strong Best Picture contender, as we were talking about before. It needs to be good, first of all.
It does need to be good, and I think it will be good, and I think that the prestige around it immediately puts it over Rocketman, even though I think Rocketman probably has more audience appeal than this does. So let's move on to our next film, which is Conclave, because I just said Saturday Night is winning People's Choice, but if it doesn't, it seems likely to go to Anora. And if it doesn't, it seems likely to go to Conclave. We haven't talked much about Conclave because there hasn't been a trailer till like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'm very confident in this. This is my number 2 for Best Picture right now. For one thing, it's a huge religious political thriller that feels like it's going to have broad appeal across the Academy. Older voters are going to absolutely love it for the dramatic elements to it, and I think younger audiences are going to really love the thriller aspect, going to love the formal qualities of what Edward Berger is doing behind the camera. It's looking like this is on the same level technically as All Quiet on the Western Front, and I think that people are actually prepared for it this time. While All Quiet came out of nowhere at the very end of the race, just popping into the BAFTAs, I think Conclave is on track to have a really good precursor run all the way through the season. And the huge ensemble cast of overdue actors is a big part of this too. Not only do you have Ralph Fiennes, you have Isabella Rossellini, you have Stanley Tucci, you have John Lithgow. There are so many actors in here that are beloved in Hollywood that have not gotten their flowers yet. That's going to build a lot of visibility towards the overall film, could lead up to this being a SAG Ensemble winner. We need great audience reception out of Tiff because I don't think it's going to be a critic critical fave. This is like, again, another one of those mid-70s on Metacritic movies that just keeps getting nominations anyways.
This seems like it's poised to be the film Twitter, the internet, the Oscar lovers villain of the season. And with it being that, I think you can guarantee it for like 6+ Oscar nominations, a Best Picture contender. It fills in that slot of movies in similar time where like they're good, just people don't think they're that great to be getting all the love that they are getting.
Let's talk about villains, because this is a weird season where most of the nominees feel like the villain of the season. In any given year, I feel like Conclave, Joker Folie, Deux, A Complete Unknown, Emilia Perez, Saturday Night, and Here, and The Piano Lesson, and like, I don't know, Gladiator. There are so many films this year that feel like they could be the film Twitter villain of the year. And so I wonder if all of them can be the villain, or if we're just going to focus all of our hate on one of them in particular, like Maestro last year. Conclave might be off the hook because Joker, Saturday Night, A Complete Unknown, Emilia Perez especially, are all going to be taking a lot of that heat from it.
I think the biggest thing for Conclave for it to be a villain is going to be the comeback from the BAFTA last time for Edward Berger and the Everything Everywhere fans. Like, oh, he didn't deserve all that love last time.
This is true.
Kind of dig this next movie before it even comes out. And I'll have to admit, I've done a complete 180 on Conclave. If you go back to our first predictions, I was someone who didn't really see the love on paper, but especially after that trailer, some more of the set photos came out, I've come around to it. I currently have at number 3 or number 4 in Best Picture. I think this seems very strong in a lot of texts. Berger, I think, is very solid for director. And then who knows, maybe Ralph Fiennes will be my new number 1 in Best Actor.
You just mentioned that people are going to feel bitter about how well All Quiet did last time. Do you not see the same for Joker? Because I absolutely see that.
I see the opposite. I think the people who love the first Joker are going to be a little bit more timid this time around. And I think the people who hated the first Joker are going to be a lot more vocally positive this time. I don't think the Academy is going to change. I think they're going to keep their love, if not go up higher.
So moving on to the next 2 films, something interesting I noticed is we both have Sony Pictures classic movies in our top 10s, but we have different ones. You have The Room Next Door, while I have I'm Still Here. So let's both go through sort of our pros and cons for these.
Pedro has always been a favorite with the Academy, especially with his actors, and if his transition into English language films goes a little bit more smoother than the rocky start of The Strange Way of Life, I can definitely see the Academy eagerly wanting to give him, his actors, his movie overall nominations, and maybe even an award. But we know Sony Pictures Classics is very smart when it comes to campaigning. If this film is getting those mixed buzz like The Strange Way of Life did last year, they could give it The Way of the Sun, where they're like, okay, it does its little mini festival run, let's just forget about it until like January, February, and then we'll put it out in very limited release that could lead way for I'm Still Here. But if The Room Next Door hits Venice, it hits New York, it's getting glamorous buzz, it's getting appeal across the board, they will make this a top 5 contender as they do with all of their real Best Picture contenders.
On the other hand, I will say, for me, Room Next Door isn't giving me vibes of being better than Pain and Glory, better than Parallel Mothers. I think it's just another Almodovar film. The question that I have to ask, and I've been asking myself, is would Pain and Glory or Parallel Mothers have gotten into Best Picture if they were in English? And the more I think about it, the more I think, no, they wouldn't have. I think that they did just as well as they could have done, and that makes me less confident in The Room Next Door. If this is not the best film he's made since 2002 when he won Best Screenplay, I don't know if I do see this getting into Best Picture, although I definitely could see it getting actress, supporting actress, and adapted screenplay. Meanwhile, I'm going for I'm Still Here as my Sony Picture Classics contender, mostly because to me this looks like the Golden Lion winner. It's this or The Brutalist in my opinion, which is really giving me big Tar vibes. Walter Salles is a great filmmaker, and he's never been given his flowers by the Academy because it's been historically very hard to get international films in. And in a new awards race where international films are being recognized not just at the Oscars, but also at precursors. We saw last year the Globes, BAFTA, PGA all went for Zone of Interest and Anatomy of a Fall, all setting the trends for what the Oscars did. It seems like we're going to be seeing more and more international films getting in across the board, not just at the Oscars. This feels like the film that's going to beat Emilia Perez in Best International Feature, and everything about it just feels like it's on track to just skyrocket right after Venice. Maybe I'm just hope-dicting a little bit too much, and the Academy goes for something they're more familiar with, but this looks like a powerful contender to me.
Do you still have Emilia Perez in your 10, or is that dropping off the list?
I do. I actually have it above I'm Still Here in my 10 because I'm more confident in that as like a safer contender, but I think that this is going to be more widely liked. The thing that is most in favor of and most against Emilia Perez is the fact that it is polarizing. People either love it or they hate it. And those types of movies can get nominations because people talk about them. And that gets it a lot of attention going into nominations. But when it comes to wins, I do think Emilia Perez is going to really struggle. It's going to hit it that a lot of people just hate this movie. They hate it very loudly. The backlash will be crazy. I am feeling less and less confident about Emilia Perez, but I just don't see what else Netflix has to offer. I still don't buy The Piano Lesson. I will not buy The Piano Lesson until it premieres. So that's kind of why I'm riding with it still. I think this is just another year where we're going to have 2 international nominees. I think it's going to be a norm going forward. Now let's move on to the next one. And I'm so sorry, Dyl. I feel like I just keep coming after you this episode. I really mean nothing personal. I'm going to need you to defend Blitz right now. You got it at number 8. This movie has flags so red it might as well be Albania. From the London premiere to the lack of promotion, we're 2 months away from this movie. Nothing. No stills. Nothing. What is Blitz? I don't know. And there's been mixed screenings. There's been rumors of festival rejections. Everything here is screaming Empire of Light to me. And it just looks like a sinking ship. Why are you still on board with the sinking ship, Dyl?
It does sound like a sinking ship, but I want to defend a few things about Blitz before I do ultimately agree with you. I think the London premiere feels like a natural choice for a movie like this. The film's set during a pivotal moment during the city's history, and it is from McQueen's home country, so I feel like this just makes a lot of sense for the premiere of the film. Granted, when's the last time a film premiered at London made the Best Picture? Never. But
2008.
2008. Okay.
Yep. Frost Nixon, 2008.
So it's been a very, very long time. It sounds like maybe it's time to come back around, but that's not why I'm predicting Blitz for Best Picture. They announced that it's going to New York as a main selection, and it could even hit some other festivals as well. It's clear that the studio behind it of Apple is trying to make significant moves to propel this film into awards race, and it's currently one of my lower picks in the Best Picture. It's one that will definitely move down after I decide to move A Complete Unknown up, but I want to hold on to it just because I don't want to drop it and then it premieres. It's like, oh no, all that stuff was kind of just whatever. This film's actually okay. It's good enough. It still has appeal in certain categories. I just no longer believe it's a top 5 contender like many people have. If you go to Gold Derby, when that opened, it was number 1 for picture
Awards
and
expert,
director.
I think it's still like top 3 probably.
That, I would agree. That is crazy to have it up that high. But like, I had that as my number 9, my number 8 in that range where like, oh yeah, I see it, but like I'm not super strong with it. It's something that definitely can move down or move up once we lay eyes onto it here very soon.
Even though, yes, the London premiere does feel like a natural choice, we know it's not by their choice. They got rejected from Venice, and it's likely this one was also rejected from Cannes. Could it have been rejected from Telluride? Could it have been rejected from TIFF? Is the London premiere a last resort for this film, or is it a choice? We'll never know that until it premieres. Though, being rejected from Venice is not the end of the world. You can still make a very good film that's rejected from Venice, aka The Tragedy of Macbeth, which was rejected from Venice back in 2021 and still went on to get a few Oscar nominations.
It's still so weird how like rejections work at film festivals, because it doesn't always seem like it's based on quality, because like if Cannes did reject Blitz, but they let Megalopolis through.
I'll admit, Blitz still could be a great film. I can't stop seeing those red flags. It's like watching everyone with Empire of Light clinging onto a dying film and just saying, oh, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, until it just inevitably didn't.
Well, let's move into some movies that we have yet to talk about, just because there's some minor news with these, but there's no mega news. And the first one I think is kind of on par with some we talked about before of Saturday Night. Here, it lost its Thanksgiving release, and I know to a lot of people out there, they never believed in Here, but you and I both saw like a small narrow way through for Here. So do you still see that, or is it completely dead?
I've never really seen a way for it. I do still see an avenue for production design, but really nothing else. And I think that losing the Thanksgiving release shows a clear vibe switch. I think Saturday night is clearly Sony's push. I don't know why, other than a lack of confidence, they would push here out of its Thanksgiving release and pushing it all the way to November 1st instead of Thanksgiving. That's weird to me. And plus, no festivals. I don't know what to think about this one, but I'm not thinking good things.
I would have to agree. I think that here always needed a fest. I was still hoping for AFI to cling on later on down the line. Maybe that can still happen, but the biggest thing this movie needs is to be like Tom Hanks' last film, A Man Called Otto. Coming out before Christmas time gives it more time to connect with audiences, get box office appeal. Best case scenario for here is it clicks with general audiences. It may have mixed to maybe even negative critical buzz, but like if the general audiences love it, they could push it into some nominations. Maybe not a Best Picture nomination, but maybe into some tech, some crafts, maybe even Tom Hanks. But like with it clearly showing that Sony is pushing all its chips over to Saturday night instead of here, I think here could be just nothing as what a lot of people said from the get-go.
So neither of us have challengers in our top 10, but I think we both have it higher than a lot of other people would. I've been made fun of multiple times for having it as high as I do, because I have it floating at number 12. For you, it's your number 15. In the event that Nickel Boys is not a sensation and Amazon MGM is left to find a different push, is it possible that challengers can creep back up into the race? Or maybe are we underestimating the fire inside? No, we're not.
No to that
No,
one.
we're not.
I've always had faith in challengers. I think it just needs a 2022 type season. We keep coming back to that year is because that year was so atypical for award season. All the fall film festivals seemed to just fall in their face. They didn't really promote many contenders out of the side of like Banshees and Tar and Fablemans. Challengers has an easy package. You put it on the campaign trail, can easily find its way to Best Picture, you can get in for screenplay, can maybe pull actress, or you can maybe pull score. That seems like stuff you can easily get if you put all your chips in on the film, but as you said, Amazon MGM, they have the Nickel Boys. Buzz seems high for this movie. It's hitting multiple festivals. And the fire inside, maybe we're underestimating it, but probably not. Cinematographers turned directors don't always work out, and I think this film's best case is the script, but as you said all the way back at the beginning of the season, there has to be a reason why Barry Jenkins isn't directing the script.
The thing I'll say about Challengers is it has momentum from a very loud group of people, aka film Twitter and Letterboxd heads. And as we've seen over the past few years, that love garnered at the beginning of the year for this specific type of movie, the younger skewing film that really connects with that audience, that love doesn't disappear. They keep championing it all year long. We're gonna see this pop up in a few categories more than people expect it to be in. So to me, if Nickel Boys does fall away, I do think Challengers pops up into the top 10.
And now let's get into our final question of this video, and it's basically going to be, what films from the Fall Film Festival circuit do you think people are drastically underestimating in this moment?
Well, there's quite a few that I think are sleepers that could pop up into the race. And the one that really stands out to me is The Brutalist. I said earlier that I think this is a Golden Lion contender, and it feels like a film that could be very successful with critics, although maybe not liked very much by audiences. It is 3.5 hours, which is a minor strike against it. We've definitely seen that if a movie is good and it's that long, people will still go for it, but if it's even just okay and it's that long, people will hate it. But there's a lot of hype around this being in 70mm film. They're really stressing that film festivals are going to be showing it on 70mm. There's an intermission, which I think is a very unique idea that people are going to respond well to. And there's a very criticky feeling to the log line. Meanwhile, the subject matter has a very elevated Oscar bait feel to it. This is ringing all the bells that The Zone of Interest did. It's ringing all the bells that Tar did, where these might be very cold films, but they're going to appeal to the highbrows, and they have enough to also appeal to the Oscar voters. It feels like it could be our yearly, gets very high 80s on Metacritic, but makes under $10 million in the box office and becomes the nominee that no one except highbrows in New York City end up seeing. The only thing keeping this out of my top 10 is the fact that it doesn't have a distributor right now. If I'm taking that issue with Queer, if I'm taking that issue with Maria, I have to take that issue with The Brutalist. Another one I'm looking at is Harvest. It's a Western movie set in the UK about xenophobia, capitalism, and about scapegoating as a form of fascism. I'm really intrigued by the blend of genres here. The putting a Western movie in like 19th century England is a really cool idea.
And then I'll just throw one out there, and it's one that doesn't make sense to be the festival darling, but I think it's a film that people are kind of writing off a little bit too early, and I think that is The Piano Lesson from Netflix, because if this is better than some of the recent August Wilson films, and it's from a fresh new voice being Denzel's other son, and if we're all proclaiming Samuel L. Jackson could win Best Supporting Actor, the movie needs to at least be in the Best Picture conversation for that to happen. And I know that I'm a little bit lower when I have it at 19, you have it on 13, but I see people who don't even have it in their top 25 whatsoever, and I feel like if you do have Samuel L. Jackson not just getting a nomination, but winning the category, you need to have it up in this area where it could potentially get a nomination, because like if it's just a complete no one cares type movie, then why would you have a acting win from that?
The only way that I could see people write off The Piano Lesson is if they're that confident in Emilia Perez, because one Netflix movie's getting in. We're not going to have a no Netflix movie year. They have unlimited money. Like, they're going to get something in. So if it's not Emilia Perez, it's The Piano Lesson. And that's why I have The Piano Lesson so close to my top 10, because I'm shaky on Emilia Perez. So another one that I'm looking out for is April, which could be very big if it hits right. It's an international contender from Georgia. It's speaking about abortion rights in Eastern Europe. I'm still a little unclear why this skipped Cannes, as it was predicted to be there, whether it was by choice or by rejection. We're going to see from reviews, but I still feel like this one could be really big, if not in picture, in international. As well, The Return looks really fascinating. It's Ralph Fiennes and Juliette Binoche doing The Odyssey. The production values look phenomenal, but the film is with Bleecker Street, and that's telling me bad things. Same with Hard Truths. And speaking of bad vibes from a distributor, another film that I think could be a contender from another distributor is The Order, but it's being handled by Vertical. That's another film I normally feel we could be underestimating, but right now, God, Vertical's going to do nothing for it. Anyways, that brings us to the end of today's video. This has been a long one, but of course, we have weeks and weeks and weeks of news to catch up on from the Best Picture race.
As always, if you made it this far in the video, consider dropping a like. A subscription helps us continue to grow. Matt is going to Tiff. He'll have festival coverage on the ground. I am going to a film festival, maybe two, maybe three, waiting to hear back from which one specifically, so you definitely want to keep an eye for that, because we're going to be talking about all of these movies in more detail very soon. And then, of course, we have our Filmball draft. If you want to join the league, it's not too late. Link is down in the description. But until next time, my name's Dyl.
And my name's Matt, and this has been Fantasy Filmball.